Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. According to the New York City Charter Schools Center, 15% of all public school students attend charter schools. There are 281 charters in New York City, with a third of them, 94 to be exact, are in our borough of the Bronx. In fact, the center says there is a larger percentage of Black, Hispanic, and Asian students in charter schools than those who attend traditional public schools. That might surprise you. On tonight's program, we're going to take a look at two charters that are part of the BLACC Latinx Asian Charter Collaborative, that's called BLACC, and we'll examine what makes them distinct and a successful option for so many Bronx students and their families. Please join me in welcoming the CEO of a network of 5 Family Life Academy charter schools in the Bronx. It is Susana Rivera-Leon. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Great, we're thrilled to have you. And the CEO and founder of the International Leadership Charter High School, as well as the author of this book, The Fight for Equity in the Bronx. It is Dr. Elaine Ruiz-Lopez. Dr. Ruiz-Lopez, nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
Let's start with you, Ms. Rivera-Leon. Why charter schools? What makes them distinctive from traditional public schools? I mean, we've got more than 1 million students in public schools. I graduated as a public school student. Why now do we really need to look at charter schools?
Well, I think, one, it is about choice. They are free public schools that are open for all students, but I guess they are about choice. It's an option. We know that there are disparities and things that were not working in our communities, and we're part of the response to that disparity or the inequity for Black and brown children.
Describe to me then the design of the school that addresses those things that you think students, Bronx students, particularly students of color, might need more of.
I think, well, for us, we are going into, this is our 24th year. We were founded primarily to deal with immigrant children and English language learner, ELs. And so at the time, there needed to be more resources applied to that population. There was a cry from the community, and we were part of the response, taking advantage of the opportunity.
Because many people felt that their children weren't getting the kind of services and the kind of education. So now you've got 5 schools. I want to put up the list of them so people can know where they are.
Thank you.
There you can see the list, one on West 170th Street, one on East 140th Street, one on Girard Avenue, one on East 165th Street. Now, there's a new high school. Those are all grade schools, as indicated there. There's a new high school on Inwood Avenue. I guess that's right off 170th Street, right?
Yes.
In the Bronx. What if you were to describe continuity or the curriculum? What works for all these schools, or do you custom design each school individually?
We are in the process, right? Because it's all been evolving over the last 15 years of the 24 years.
In education, if you can't change with what's happening outside your window, then you better get out of the business. I'm sorry to say.
No, thank you for that. So it is about this K-12 experience. And so for us, I would just respond about the high schools. It's our newest, right? And so we first had the 3 elementary schools that feed now into our largest campus, which is the one on 165th, the middle school. But I think the continuity is about a social justice theme. And so we want our scholars in our high school, by the time they get to high school, that they are the expression of what social justice means, not only in school, not only going into college, but in the community. And so when you ask about that, you see that theme from kindergarten all the way through graduation, which our first graduating class will be in 2026.
You know, it's as if you're programming my show for me, because this is the perfect segue for a woman who wrote a book about equity in the Bronx, changing lives and transforming communities one scholar at a time. So Dr. Ruiz-Lopez, let's just talk about the notion of social justice. I know you've been working at establishing this school. You worked at it since you were very young. What social justice needs need to be addressed in charter schools that you think they may not be getting from traditional public schools?
Well, first and foremost, I was born and raised in the boogie down Bronx, the
Here
home
we
of
go.
salsa and the Yankees, in the South Bronx during a time when the Bronx was burning. And from a very young age, I had developed a lens of social injustice and inequity in housing, education, in food insecurity, and not being able, to attend schools feeling that I was safe.
Especially during an era where your neighborhood was burning,
Yes.
and of course history has well proven that it was done
Absolutely.
unfairly and
Yes.
unnecessarily
Yes.
and for selfish reasons. I mean, we know all
Yes.
about that. So if you're a youngster growing
Yes.
up in that, you always you will feel like, wait a minute, this can't be happening to my people. I mean,
Absolutely.
is that where it's at?
Absolutely. And then, so when I was a teenage mom, I was pushed out of high school. Then I found my way to City College, where I majored in education. Then I requested, once I had my teaching license, to be placed in the South Bronx. That was in the midst of rubble, abandoned buildings.
Right.
It looked, of course, as you know, it
And
looked
so
like a
let's
bomb
move it
had
ahead.
hit.
And so your response
Yes.
to those things was to do what?
Well, my response was to, pursue a doctorate in education. I was accepted to Teachers College, Columbia University, and I knew that I had to do something of impact for the community in the South Bronx. So I started a charter high school, an academically rigorous college prep, 19 years ago. And we just expanded down to middle school. So we're serving a 6th, 7th grade.
And this
Yes.
is the International Leadership Charter High School. So
Yes.
in a way, for you personally, it was a dream come true.
Absolutely. And also a way of providing the community with quality education and seats for parents, for students who were not feeling comfortable with the types of education that was being
and
taught.
even being comfortable in a classroom.
Absolutely.
So I want to get for both of you, but we'll start with you. Talk specifics about the curriculum. You have a little more freedom with charter schools than
Yes.
you do with traditional public
Absolutely.
schools. You have freedom to customize curriculum and programs.
Yes.
And really the overall student
Yes.
experience. Give me 1, 2, or 3 things that you do at the International Leadership Charter School that might be different, that you think help students feel more comfortable. And then, of course, success is what
Yes.
we're all thinking about.
So our curriculum is aligned to the New York State standards, and our students are still required to take the Regents exams in order to graduate. Above and beyond that, we provide a curriculum that's rooted in social justice, where students are required to read books that include Why We Can't Wait by Dr. Martin Luther King. They're required to read the story of Malcolm X. They're required to read, Raisin in the Sun. They're required to read Malala.
And
so they can get
so
that
this
sense.
makes them feel comfortable because you believe it speaks to them.
It speaks to
I'm
them
making
and
that
their
assumption.
experiences. It also they're also supported in doing research and writing about issues of social justice, having a human rights research paper presented
And
as
so
part of
then,
their portfolio.
I'm going to move them ahead. So then when they graduate and they move to college, and I know you've had a very good rate of graduates going to college, then they will have maybe some of the passion that you had to say, well, maybe it won't be in education, maybe it'll be in some other industry, and then you will feel for yourself and also for all of us that we've done the right thing.
The focus and the legacy part is going to be led by the alumni. We've had 15 graduating classes, and the message that has been consistent is that they must find their purpose and come back to the
To the
community
schools so that
and to the school
and to the
to give
community.
back.
I'm
I
sure,
wanted to speak about the earlier grades, right?
well, let's
ahead, you
talk
tell
about that same concept.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to ask you about
So-
it for younger people
Yes,
who
so-
may not be able to read
No,
Martin
no,
Luther King's
yeah.
books and all that.
So we use a curriculum where in kindergarten they still explore American history and the civil rights. By third grade, they're already critically examining historical narratives like holidays, like Thanksgiving, right? Just getting facts and looking and exploring history. By fifth grade, students are engaging with The Breadwinner, which introduces them to global human rights. It's a book. Right?
I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
It was easy to understand with high school
Yeah.
students that if they read it, they'll get it. And of course, with instruction and dialogue. Do young people get it? I mean, now we should say that one of her students is here. We'll let you see her later on. But when I asked her about what she finds interesting, she mentioned the Boston Tea Party,
Yeah.
that was interesting, and that young people kind of say, well, that was, a protest.
Yeah. Well, why that, right?
Yeah.
And so my thing is just we want our curriculums to be reflective of our narrative, of our story that's sometimes not included. But we need to explore what I mentioned. It's really looking at our history and what that means here in a U.S. context, but also not negating or neglecting the Black and Brown story and where that falls in history, and having books and staffing and experiences in the school that reflect also.
And so this works for the larger collaborative for the BLACC schools. Presumably, they're all doing this sort of thing.
We would hope so, yes, in some form. Yes.
Let's just talk about some other things in terms of structure of the schools. I saw pictures, I think it was your school, and they wear uniforms and those
Yes.
kinds of things. What are the kinds of other things that you do outside of teaching social justice and of course, following the state curriculums and state standards? What do you do that teaches? You're nodding. You're going to get the same question. In a
I
second.
just wanted to go a little bit back, but I'm going to answer that. So at our new high school, it's 3
Right.
years in, right? They follow. We use the capstone project. So ninth graders do food disparity. 10th graders are working on health. 11th graders work on housing. And what's different is not that it's event based or project. It is a project based, but a year-long project. So they're looking at advocacy. They're working with our local politicians, right?
I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it brought a smile to my face because in the Bronx, especially, all they got to do is walk out the door, and they see all of that around them. And if you teach them about it or
Yes.
they understand about it, well, they can help us. Maybe they
They're
do
part of
better
the-
at solving the
Yes,
problems than we
absolutely.
have. Dr. Ruiz-Lopez, what are your thoughts on the same topic? What do you do outside of teaching social justice that backs up the whole notion?
Well, we also expose our young people to music and dance,
Oh, I was
Afro-Caribbean
going to ask you
dance.
about extracurricular.
Taekwondo.
You
have
do
a-
the same kinds of things?
They have the 2-year requirement to take Taekwondo. So I believe they go up to their green belt. They're also involved in internships with community-based organizations. And also many of our 11th and 12th graders are required to complete 200 hours of an internship, either in a nursing home,
That's very
a
useful.
senior center, a school, at a food pantry,
Every student does these kinds of things?
in their junior and senior
Well,
year.
that's
Yes.
wonderful, because one of my thoughts when I think about what children have been through, and actually I saw, and this is a horrible thing to think about, that crime is down in many age brackets in the city, but it's up in from 12 to 17, which is very scary to me. And my feeling is, and I grew up in a house of educators, is that because students sat there looking at screens for 2 years, and getting them out of the classroom is really important. Getting them out
Absolutely.
to see the world, to interact with each other, interact with real people. I want to ask you something, Dr. Ruiz-Lopez, about students who get selected for the school, because many
Yes.
students apply, et cetera, et cetera. Criticisms of charter schools have been, well, you handpick the students, so therefore, you end up with better results because you have students who are more
Yes,
capable.
yes.
Well, what's your thought about that?
Well, that's one of the false narratives of
It's a false
the
narrative.
charter schools, those
she
who
said,
oppose
she
charter
whispered
schools.
no as soon as I said
And so, there's an application process. It's open to all students who live within the 5 boroughs. Certainly, we have most of our students come from the Bronx and from the community school district that we serve, which is District 10. We also, there's a lottery process under the New York State Charter law. It's prohibitive to cherry pick your students. That is, a false narrative.
So what is admission based on?
It's based on interest and there's a lottery. If we have more applications than we have seats, the New York State Charter law requires that early in April, there is a lottery that's conducted.
You were pretty.
Yes,
she
I was
whispered
like,
no
yes,
as soon as I
yes.
said the question.
So we're in Community School District 7 and 9, and it's the same thing. It's application. We are free public schools, open to all. All it requires is filling out an application. And like Dr. Lopez has stated, if it goes beyond the number of seats that are available, then you're placed on a waiting list.
And what do you do as far as the experiential learning? It's very nice to say we're going to send a 3rd grader in to have an internship at a health, at a food pantry or something. What do you do with them in terms of experiential learning so they get out of the classroom or at least expand what education is other than reading?
Well, I think one of my elementary schools applied and was awarded a Disney grant. And for them, it was
Really?
amazing to have. And I did not even have that in my notes, but as we were sharing, 2 things came up. The word lacrosse, right? Who in our districts, where do we see a field and
Play
where do you get?
lacrosse.
And you've even heard of that word
I think
with the
Manhattan
populations,
University
right?
does
So,
lacrosse.
but we have that. It starts in our middle school program and continues on to
And
high
so
school.
you actually
We
teach
have
them
lacrosse,
something
yeah.
like lacrosse.
Something that they're not exposed to. We have basketball, we have football, we have dance teams, we have drumming, we have all those type of activities that mainly start in our middle school. Now we're going even lower into our elementary school. But I want to go back to the Disney
But
project.
wait,
Go
before
ahead,
you do that,
Okay.
before you do that,
You're
teaching somebody from the Bronx like lacrosse is fascinating because that's a sport that's played in many other places. So when they leave here or go to college
scholarships.
if they're good, they could get a scholarship in it. But to me, it's a wonderful thing. Maybe we'll, right, that beautiful new field outside Yankee Stadium, we can run some lacrosse matches.
We have a lot of undefeated teams, and the student you'll see later, she's nationally ranked as a track star. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. But you mentioned the Disney grant. I do want to talk about the financing of schools. So talk about that, and then we'll have you go through that as well.
This was where a small number of charter schools applied, and regular, in a sense, if I could use that word, regular, right, DOE schools.
Traditional is the word you
Traditional, schools applied for this Disney grant. And it was a 2-year grant, amazing, where you had a Broadway producer come and do kind of an in-house 3-month project
Really?
working with our students. It was with our 5th graders.
On what? Like dancing?
A Broadway show,
putting together
putting on a Broadway show.
Wow.
So last year was The Lion King. They actually did a local presentation of The Lion King, but then actually we're on a Broadway stage.
Wow.
So opening up, just possible dreams of our youngsters.
And they actually
being
did it
exposed
on
to
a Broadway stage?
Yes, and this year they're doing Aladdin. So
Wow. Folks, can you imagine?
yes, I wanted to get on the stage with them, but beautiful.
That's wonderful.
But it's that opening possibilities.
So let's just talk about the financing of it.
Yes.
So you get a grant. There is money that comes, funding that comes through the DOE from, right?
It's the difference is just it's through the state reimbursement to the school
per student.
per pupil.
And it's similar to what traditional public school gets.
Yes,
She's shaking her head. So
yeah,
let's
she
talk
can.
about funding
You go ahead.
there.
You jump in.
So in my book, I
Because
write.
I know that you advertise. We see
Yes,
advertisements.
yes.
I don't see other
Yes.
high schools advertising.
Absolutely. So we have to be very intentional about the recruitment because our revenue is based on per pupil capita. And the difference, substantial difference, and the fiscal inequity between charter schools and traditional public schools is that charter schools only receive 80% of the per pupil capita as compared
Uh-huh.
with the Department of Education. So historically, charter schools have had to do more with less and greater accountability. In our case, at the International Leadership Charter High School, you know, we're in the process of a ground up construction. It would be our second one. We have to find ways of financing that and going for private, you know, corporate dollars. Fortunately, as a charter school, we are considered a nonprofit organization, so we could apply.
And so who have
Yeah.
been your funders? Is there things we can talk about?
Sure, absolutely.
Go
Absolutely.
ahead.
So, you know, during the pandemic, we were, identified by the Walton Family Foundation to receive close to $1 million grant
Wow.
to expand down to middle school and provide quality seats based on our existing performance. We
Sure.
also recently, we had to incubate our middle school at a 104-year-old Catholic school building that was dilapidated, owned by Montefiore Hospital today. And so we renovated that to the tune of $1.2 million, and the Bloomberg Philanthropies provided us
so
with
it
that
gives
funding.
you an extra responsibility
Yes.
to do if you want to do that.
Yes.
But the opportunity is there, which is of course why you're doing
Absolutely.
it, because you do advertise. I mean, I've seen
Yes.
ads for schools, and so
Same question.
same question. Do you
So
work? I guess you got the Disney grant, but do you
That
work
was a
with
small
other
grant,
grantors?
to work. So we were fortunate enough to be one of the recipients of Mackenzie Scott, and it was a substantial number that allows us to dream and provide again those things that are not necessarily the norm in some of our community schools. We also have foundations who have also given family foundations, Walton, Robin Hood.
So you've got to be
We constantly have to be
smart about that,
fundraising
yeah.
and be very smart about it.
I want to ask you something else that really affected all of us, and of course all the traditional public schools, is migrants. Now, did you have had migrant students in? And again, we'll get to you in a second.
Yeah,
And how have you dealt with that?
The answer is just like any other student who would appear on an application or at our door. And it's taking them in and making sure that they have been surrounded by the support teams, meaning by our staff, not just to meet them academically, but in addition to all their needs.
I was going to say
Additional needs like providing uniforms,
providing uniforms,
referring
and
them
housing
for
and other
housing.
things.
We have a percentage that are in temporary housing. It's less than 20%, but we have a group of students who are in temporary housing, making sure that not just our local pantries, because we do
Right.
have pantries at our schools, at 2 out of the 5, we're adding the rest, but making sure that all those needs, including mental health, which I know you're going to get to,
Well,
and
it's in
other
there.
resources, yeah.
It's in there. But I guess it goes down to the best education. It doesn't matter whether traditional school or a charter school, is when you take the whole child
Supporting
into
and
account.
their family.
I mean, what do we say? There's something like 10% of the children going to public schools. I don't know if it applies to charters, are coming from shelters, which is a very difficult way to live and to grow up. But what's your thought about the migrants and those kinds of things?
Well, we're very intentional about pursuing migrant families. You know, we worked with Commissioner Manuel Castro's office from the city in order to identify where those students were. And once again, we, as my colleague here has indicated, what we have been able to do is identify those families, identify the needs that they have, and connect them with resources, providing uniforms,
Take it
et cetera.
seriously.
Yes.
Last real question I just want to ask about families. I remember when I was younger, my parents would go to the adult center with other parents in the school, and they would play volleyball at night or basketball or whatever they would do. They never shared with me what they actually did, but I know they all got together. How do you work with families, and how do you bring them into the educational process, which of course ultimately serves the children best?
Well, the parents and our families are the pillar of support to and longevity of our charter school. We have a phenomenal director of parent and community engagement that works with the parents and families There's a parent advisory council, there are activities, events, open houses. They volunteer to support the school in different ways. So they're very, very engaged. And in fact, my board of trustees, all charter schools have to have a board of trustees. My board of trustees is the large percentage of our board members are parent leaders.
So that really helps.
Yes, it helps tremendously.
They'll tell you what they think. I know Bronx parents.
Absolutely.
And
So
what about for you?
That's what I was going to say. One of the unique things about myself and my colleagues is that mine is almost 100%. Our parent alumni, the executive board,
They
and the
all
rest.
participate.
When
Yes.
you are elected to the Parents Association of one of our schools, you get 2 years on the board automatically.
Oh, so that's interesting.
So that's the way that you
Yes.
enter and our parents were our founding board members. We also have a parents council. They meet with me once a month, and they are very active. Go ahead.
And so what that does is it breeds a culture.
Absolutely.
That's what. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the show. I want you to just tell our parents in the Bronx how they can reach you, how they can get to you, what they should do to, if they have interest. That's what we did. We want a school choice. We want you to choose. Maybe it's not the
Yes.
right thing. Maybe it is the right thing.
I'm like, I want to make sure I say
You want to get it?
correctly.
I'm sure we can put it up on the screen. We just go to your website.
Yes,
is
go
that
to
it?
our website.
There we go.
And it's Flax NYC. I want to make sure
There
that I
it is.
said it
It's on
correctly, right?
NYC.com. It's on there.
Flax.com. Please fill out an application. We still have
Yeah, and we
current
put the
seats.
social media up there.
Yes.
And what about for you?
Yes, you could go to our website, www.ilchs.org, in order to retrieve an enrollment application.
There we go.
Yes.
Listen, Susana Rivera-Leon, CEO of the 5 Bronx Family Life Academy Charter Schools. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you so
us.
much.
And Dr. Elaine Ruiz-Lopez, who wrote this book. There it is, Equity in the Bronx.
All proceeds go to college scholarships
Oh.
for
Yes.
first
There
generation
you go, and
students.
I'll hold it up again.
Yes.
Let's make sure. And thank you so much, and congratulations on the International Leadership Charter High School. We do have a student who's going to join us for the outro here. This is Chanel. Hi, Chanel. Got it?
Wonderful.
Just come
I
on
love it.
around. I wanted to listen. We're nothing without our students. You can come right here. There you are. You see yourself on TV. There she is. Come around here, and you can say hello. And she goes to one of the FLAC schools.
Middle school,
Middle
seventh grader.
school. There you go. And I will thank our producer, Rebecca Hemick, our director, Will Guzman, Urelis Encarnacion is the graphics person, our editor is Jesse Diaz. We have a cast of thousands around us who work with us in the studios. Of course, to you, too, the people of the Bronx. And so if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we'll be here next week, and we'll say congratulations, Chanel, on being a great student. Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you so much.
Thank you, Gary.